We all pay taxes, but we don't really understand taxes.
Tax is complicated for a reason. Tax is always changing. It's an interpretation-based system.
Being a doctor in India and pursuing homeopathy.
The rule of investment is diversification. My father asked my brother to join engineering, and he asked me to join medical field.
How do you help businesses in managing their money?
Cash flow is the king. You don't have a proper cash management in place, you could be in a big trouble.
How was your upbringing growing up in India?
My father just moved from a village to a city. We were living in a one bedroom. It's everything. It's a kitchen, a bedroom.
So, Immunis Financial Broker, what is your objective?
Is to work with immigrant business owners. I work with hundreds of dentists in 6 provinces in Canada.
Small business owner, what options do they have?
Every business needs a planning. Planning could be spending $20 a month or $10 a month. Cost is very subjective.
Is there any one quality that stands out?
I would trade stocks during the daytime from 6 in the morning till 2:30 p.m. and then go for work.
Have you ever run into a situation where somebody has not done proper risk management beforehand?
Wife decides that, okay, she doesn't need a life insurance policy, so she cancels the policy. A year after that, she got diagnosed with breast cancer. 2 years later, she dies. It's a safety net for his family. If something goes wrong, he knows now that my family will not suffer financially.
How did you help them make that investment?
He has about a $1.3 million currently invested in GIC match.
Is the government doing enough for the business owners?
First, the death benefit will pay the bank loan, come out from the corporation via CDA balance, go to the charity. Charity will write the tax receipt. That tax receipt will wipe off the...
Yeah. What does the process look like to become a financial advisor?
Are you going to be an insurance expert or you want to be an investment expert?
Why would somebody go to a broker like yourself?
Try to help anybody and everybody that you can without any expectations.
Sat Sri Akal, Namaste, hello and welcome to the Truth Tribe Show. I'm your host Ravi Toor, and today we will be discussing everything about running a business, planning for a successful business, navigating different career paths, and how to come out on top with a very special guest from Immunis Financial Brokers, Yogesh Sheta. Yogesh, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So, who is Yogesh? Yogesh is a man whose life story reads like an adventure novel. Picture this, a dedicated homeopathy doctor in India pivots and then leaps across the world, first to nursing and then to light up Calgary's financial scene with Immunis Financial Brokers. It's a journey of courage, change, and conviction. Yogesh isn't just any financial guru, he's a visionary. Imagine founding a company that not only speaks finance, but breeds innovation and client care. That's Immunis for you, crafted under Yogesh's keen eye for making the daunting world of finance genuinely accessible to all. Super excited to learn about all that. So Yogesh, why don't we start right from the start? And what I mean by that is your time being a doctor in India and pursuing homeopathy. I want to understand what sort of sparked your interest in that and how was that time that you spent doing your doctor's journey there?
I enrolled in a homeopathy college there in India, in Gujarat, because in India, you make decisions very differently. It's a family decision when it comes to making a career decision, right? So my father was very much impressed by a neighbor who was a doctor in the same field, and he was doing very well financially. And just the rule of investment is diversification. My father wanted to diversify it as well. That means he asked my brother to join engineering, and he asked me to join medical field. He wanted to diversify between his two sons. So I enrolled in the medical school. I like the education part of it. It's good. But in India, it's a volume. That means there are so many doctors out there. And I'm not saying it's hard to be successful. You can be successful even if you have a huge competition, as long as you are expert in your own field, right? But it didn't click with me. I didn't want to pursue that further. Like, I finished my studies, became a bachelor in homeopathy, worked as a doctor in emergency and at the homeopathic clinic for some time. I wanted to find more opportunities, and I started looking outside of India. First choice was Germany, but then language barrier was a huge issue for me and for most of the people, right? Because it's a totally different language. I end up coming in Canada. So it's not, I had a dream that, okay, I want to grow up and I want to go to Canada and then build my career there. I landed in Canada, got an admission in nursing school,
Yeah.
did my education for 2 years, got my diploma, started working as a nurse. I was following this person, Rakesh Junjunwala, and Warren Buffett. And in 2015, I thought I should start with stock trading. So I was working as a nurse during the daytime, and because of my shift was evening shift, so I would pay focus, or I would trade stocks during the daytime from 6 in the morning till 2:30 p.m. and then go for work as a nurse. I did that for quite some time. But one night, December of 2016, a friend of mine said, "Why don't you look at insurance, just a part time?" I'm like, "Sure, why not?" That was just a part time thought that, okay, I'm going to make some bucks and maybe have a vacation money. But the moment I sold my first policy to a good friend of mine, I realized that I've done two things. One, I've done good thing for my friend. The life insurance brings peace of mind. It's a safety net for his family. If something goes wrong, he knows now that my family will not suffer financially. There's always an emotional gap, but insurance can fill this financial gap. So one thing on the client part, that we are doing something that helps them. But for me, it was also financial motivation where I was able to see an exponential growth there. I'm like, okay, if I can do one, then I can do 100. And if I can do 100, then I can do thousands. That was my goal from that one first day, that I'm going to make this my career. Plan was very simple. The moment I make enough or more amount of income as compared to my nursing income, I would make that switch. I got my license in February of 2017. In December of 2017, I quit everything and I started this company called Immunis Financial. So in the beginning, I was focusing on family market, and don't get me wrong, it's a great market. But I realized that my skills and my knowledge would be appreciated more in a corporate market. So since 2018, we started working with a more and more business owner community. As I'm coming from a health field, I focused on pharmacist market locally. Then I started working with dentistry market, and I found my niche market then. That was internationally graduate or foreign trained dentist. So currently I work with hundreds of dentists in 6 provinces in Canada. So not just Alberta, but BC, Ontario, Nova Scotia, Manitoba, Saskatchewan. Wherever my dentist clients are or wherever I see an opportunity, I would get a license, because we need a provincial license to operate in a province to provide our services.
Very interesting. So we'll dive into that. So, Immunis Financial Broker, what is your objective and goal, if you have to sum it up?
Our objective is to work with immigrant business owners. What I've noticed is that immigrant business community are very good at building businesses, but when it comes to having a proper planning, that's where I see a need. Not a lot of professional focus in this area, because this market is different. It requires a different style of communication. They need a person that holds hand for a long time. That means they need to be educated well. They don't know the potential issues with not having a proper business structure in place. So our job is to focus on 4 areas. First is business structures. Second is business taxation. Third is risk and wealth management. And fourth is estate tax. Any business owner would need help with these 4 areas. Now, they could prioritize this based on their need, but we want to focus on these 4 areas. No matter what client wants, we always try to advise them that, okay, look, if you have a proper structure, tax will be minimized. Now let's take care of the risk and wealth part, which is every business has a risk. Most of the business owners take on the huge debt to run the businesses. So we want to make sure that that debt is covered through some kind of life insurance planning. And all the other planning, which is financial planning, we're going to have a safety net in place. Having an emergency fund is important. Having a proper agreements between shareholders is important. Having a proper will is important. Because if you have a really successful business, but you don't have a proper shareholder agreement, you don't have a proper will in place, you're still facing a huge problem down the road. We'll give a clear direction to the family or an executor what to do. Shareholder agreement will have a clear direction what's going to happen to the shares of the deceased person, how to get out of the business when one of the partner wants to get out, at what valuation, where the money will come from. So we want to talk about all those essential issues. Now, guess what? Being an insurance advisor, I can't offer everything in-house. So that's why I rely on other professionals. That's where I have a team of great other professionals, such as corporate lawyers, corporate accountants. I have really great relationship with personal bankers, investment brokers, other, I would say, lending brokers, such as mortgage brokers or private lenders. Whatever my client needs, I have relationship with those other professionals.
So, a couple of quick questions on that, and sorry to interject there. So, you mentioned you have all these relationships. Do you? I guess my question to you is, why would somebody go to a broker like yourself as opposed to going to a big major bank? What is the advantages of going to you as opposed to them?
Great question. So the biggest advantage that I can point out here is that it's a personalized service. Yes, the banks could give you a personalized service as well, but that person is an employee. You build a great relationship with the bank. That's great, and you should have a great relationship with bank that you deal with. The problem is that the person that's helping you today. Here you are building a relationship with let's say a banker, and you start this business and you are in a lending arrangement with the bank, or you're planning an investment with the banks. Now, what's going to happen 3 months, 6 months, 8 months later, when you call that bank again, that person may not be there. Other thing is that I'm also a business owner. I know what I'm doing here. I'm not just building a business, I'm building a legacy for my family. That means we want to create this long lasting relationship with our clients.
So, you work with a lot of business owners, and especially immigrant business owners. In your understanding of it, what sort of challenges do these business owners face? So what kind of gaps is there? Maybe that's in their education, maybe that's in their just understanding of the system. What do you notice are the top couple of things that you see with the clients that you work with?
So the biggest thing that I see with business owners that I work with is lack of time, because they are so busy with their businesses. They are busy building that business and they forget planning for it. That means they don't have a proper agreement, they don't have a will, they don't have a proper financial plan in place, they don't think about in way long in future. That means retirement planning. They don't have any estate planning in place. So our job is, when we say we work with other professionals, essentially, yes, we're bringing a lot of expertise on the table, but at the end of the day, I'm also doing one more thing, which is reducing the time. Because if my client has to go and find these different professionals, number one, they have to spend a lot of time on doing that research. When they come to me, basically that time is saved. And you know what? When time is saved, the money is saved, right? That's biggest advantage that business owner would have when they work with us. And every professional is licensed and liable for their own activity. Every professional, they have their own businesses, so they want to do more than expected of. And that's what it differentiates from us from the banks. An advisor working at a bank are limited, or they have a script that they need to follow. They cannot talk anything outside of the box. And we are here known for thinking outside of the box. I can bring in, or I can talk to any other professionals and see if that professional can add any business value or any strategies that banks don't have.
So let's dive right into it since you've said that. So there's a lot of things that you do. And what I'm aiming to do is just break those down. So basically, we'll look at every aspect of the service that you offer to business owners. And then my goal is to simplify it from a business owner's perspective as to what value they get out of that particular segment, right? So the first I have, and I think this is mandatory for every business, is managing their cash flow. So managing their cash flow, making good investments. So my question to you is, how do you help businesses in managing their money, making sure that their cash flow is smooth?
Right. Cash flow is the king, I would say, when you're running a business, correct? So if you want to see the business survival, you want to look at the balance sheet. As long as they have a good balance sheet, you'll see that this business is thriving and it's going to grow, and it's going to get better and better over the years, because balance sheet tells us a lot. So that's why I collaborate with accountants. We want to make sure that the books are clear, books are very well, I would say, maintained. We always talk about having an emergency fund. Same thing with the business owner side. You should always have some kind of emergency fund. If something goes wrong, for example, in COVID time, when COVID happened, all the bank, they froze their credits. So no business owners were getting any loan out there. Now, if your business that requires cash and you don't have a proper cash management in place, you could be in a big trouble, because without cash, employees going to go away. They need money too, because they have to feed their family. So cash is the king.
I totally agree with you on that. So, how do you, and I guess this is a follow up to that, how do you help businesses decide where to invest their money on? How do you assess that? How do you make it's a good decision or not a good decision?
So my strategy is a little bit different. Generally, when you go to an investment advisor, he will say, Mr. Client, this is an investment, this is the growth rate, this is the risk, and this is how it's going to grow into for so many years down the line. Do you want to invest? We don't do that. I want to always understand the client first. That means a business owner first, where he's coming from, what he has done till now, what does he like in terms of asset classes, what kind of risk he can take, what kind of knowledge level he has, and where actually they want to go. Finding the right product is important, and then go about investing into assets. Many a time, they have a good accountant. That accountant does not have a time to sit down with a client and explain what are the tax consequences when you invest or sell those assets, right? So we take that part. I would try to educate the client that this is a tax treatment, this is the growth rate, and this is the net effect after the tax. Do you want to invest?
Can you give me an example of that? Somebody that you worked with, how did you help them make that investment? What was it and how that helped them?
So let's talk about a client. I had a dentist client, and he had about a $1.3 million invested in GIC. During the discovery process, we found out that the GIC does not match with his investment objectives. And furthermore, he wasn't even aware that GIC would have a passive income impact. So this client was in Ontario, and the passive income tax is like 50%. Right now, in the current interest rate environment, it looks like, okay, 5% on $1 million, for example, great. You're going to get $50,000 in passive income. Guess what? Half of that will be tax. And client wasn't made aware at the bank. See that? Banks can talk about a product, but they may not talk about the end impact. He liked real estate investments. I did connect him with a good real estate realtor, and that person helped him make a little bit of investment in real estate property. Then we still have some money on cash as an emergency fund in the business. Some of those money are going into life insurance policy. This money that goes into a corporate life insurance policy is going to grow on a tax deferred basis. Number one, it gives him a protection from day one, but it's also growing on a tax efficient basis because the growth inside the policy is tax deferred until it's disposed of. And he can later use this same fund to fund his retirement or fund any business expansion or whatever he would like to do with the money. He can always access those money. We call it a unlimited TFSA account for the business. So when you have money invested into a cash value life insurance policy, you can use it for the business.
You mentioned the corporate structure, and I think that's like the first part of setting up a business, right? So
Right.
what do you mean when you say corporate structure? What are different kind of structures one can set, and how does it benefit them?
So corporate structure, first of all, you need to understand what corporation is, right? So corporation in the Tax Act it's like a separate entity. That means now when you incorporate your practice, that means if you're a dentist, you say, I'm going to open my own professional corporation. Or if you're a business owner, you're going to say, okay, I'm going to have a corporation now. That means in the Tax Act or in the tax language, you are two people now. You are individual as a business owner, and you are also a shareholder of this business entity. Make sense? That corporation, when it's running in operations, providing an active services, manufacturing some products, that's called operating company. When you have another corporation that holds assets, assets could be anything, a real estate property or shares of other corporation or any other asset like GIC accounts, any investment accounts, any investments, any asset it holds. That's why we call it a holding corporation. It's just the way the businesses act. If an active business runs or operates a company, it's called operating corporation. If it holds an asset, it's called holding corporation. Make sense?
Yeah,
So
for sure.
people have holding corporations for a reason. Again, the name suggests to hold assets, correct?
Yeah.
And then there are further structures like family trust, or they create sister companies to segmentize those businesses. That means I have a business that does X activity. Now I want to also do a Y activity. You could do with the same corporation, but sometimes you want to have a Y corporation or a different corporation to do these Y activities because you can sell this part of the business and still keep the business with you, right? I'll give you an example. If, let's say there is a business owner and he's running I would say, he's running a retail store. And over the years, the retail store is doing really great. And from loss making business, now it's a profit generating business. That means there's a lot of return income every year. Okay. Now, he could still do this forever. But there is a problem with this structure where he runs a business, and running a business comes with a lot of other issues, such as creditor issues, liabilities like litigations, right? And for a business owners, there is no CPP. They might have a CPP, but they may not have an employer sponsor pension plans. So the business, the why, from the financial point of view, they should also have some planning in place to protect those assets from litigations or from creditors. So again, that's where the role of holding corporation will come in play, where they can run the business, whatever the profits are there, they should push upwards in a tax efficient or tax free manner through intercorporate dividends into the holding corporation. Now, if liability happens at the corporate level, it's limited to that operating particular corporation. The creditors can't just go to the holding corporation and demand those cash. Make sense? Or litigators can't just really go to the holding corporation and demand those assets that are sitting there. So asset protection is needed. Got it? So it's all about objective. So if it's an asset protection, you might want to put that asset that is away from the operating corporation. Because when this activity happened, it happened at the operating corporation level, not at the holding corporation, and it gives a protection. Got it? Another thing is that there is something called lifetime capital gain exemption. To date, it's around $1 million. Every year, it grows by inflation, but right now it's at $1 million effective 2024. That means any business owner, when they sell their business, it's essentially a share sell, not the asset sell. They can claim up to $1 million of lifetime capital gain exemption. Now, guess what? Government is smart too. They know this, that business owner would grow this business and sell it and will not pay me a tax.
Yeah.
So they put some requirements in place called you have to have 90% of assets should be activated at the time of sell. Now, in our original example, if client has a lot of retained income, which is not an active asset, it right away disqualifies this corporation to claim that lifetime capital gain exemption, right? So when we did this holding corporation on top of the operating corporation, we were essentially purifying this corporation every year, pushing it asset upstairs, means holding corporation. Whenever the sale happens, the business owners can claim that lifetime capital gain exemption on the portion of the shares that he owns personally. So again, there's a lot of moving parts here. It's a strategic planning. It's not just creating a holding corporations and you're done. No, you have to really think this through and divide the share ownership accordingly, because we want to purify the corporation. At the same time, we want to claim this lifetime capital gain exemption. So in this case, our corporate lawyer might suggest owning some shares personally and some shares corporately through holding corporation. So whenever the need for cash, which is for a day-to-day requirement, then the business owner can pay themselves a salary or a dividend. And the rest of the money that can be paid out to this holding corporation via intercorporate dividends. So creating structures makes sense where we want tax efficiency, liability protection, at the end of the day, simplicity, because all of the investment activities are happening at different level and the operating activities are happening at a different level.
I guess the bigger the operation, the bigger their demands are, or more complex rather their demands are, and more complex their structuring could be. So moving on from the structure piece, I want to shed some light on the risk management piece, because I think that's one of the biggest things that any business has to do. So can you explain what does risk management means in context of business, and how do you help businesses protect themselves?
So first defense is cash flow planning. So once you have a cash flow planning done, that means you have how much cash is needed and how much cash reserve is needed. That one part is done. Then that's most important part. The second part is that, okay, does the business has a debt? And do you want to secure that debt? Then yes. If answer is yes, then we put up some kind of life insurance solution in place. If something goes wrong, in this case, aka death happens, the life insurance policy will pay these proceeds to the corporation, and corporation will pay off the debt. So that's one risk. Second risk is that it's called estate tax. Basically, if the business owner dies and he transfers this business upon death to the next generation, there is again a tax risk. Basically, business is there, but there is no cash in place. Let's say there is a business owner started this business with $0 service business, and over the years, at the time of death, the value of the corporation is $2 million, for example, and the person is dead. The money is in the assets, so there is no cash available in the bank, but the business is valued at $2 million. Okay. At the time of death, the $2 million is subject to estate tax. Mm-hmm. So $2 million, there's a lot more thing that can be added to the estate tax calculation, but just from this one asset point of view, $2 million is the capital gain, $1 million is a taxable capital gain, and $500,000, let's say average tax is 50%. So around $500,000 is tax due at the time of death. Before that, transfer happens to the next generation. So we call it probate system, and before it clears out. So there's a need for $500,000 cash. Guess what? There's no cash in the bank. Executor has nothing, or he has no cash to pay in terms of estate tax. So what that person is going to do, the executor, in a non-planning environment, executor will first sell those assets. And we have more issues with the selling the asset. What is the market situation? What is the cost of selling? Make sense? And does those beneficiaries are happy with that decision? Because executor's job is to pay the estate tax as well. That's his fiduciary duty, his or her fiduciary duty, to clear the probate first and then transfer those assets over, right? So sometimes, yes, there was a $500,000 tax due, but then a state could lose up to $1 million in assets. In a non-planning environment, you could end up losing a lot more assets than in a planning environment. I also specialize in strategic philanthropy. So we also specialize in designing charitable giving or gifting for donors and charities. And what do I mean by that? Let's just put it this way. There are three beneficiaries: child, charity, and CRA. There are three beneficiaries of your estate. You have to pick two. You cannot pick one because there's always a tax on the death, number one. You can give it to charity, by the way, but then your children may not like it. All right. So you have to pick two. Okay. What do you do? So if you don't want to give it to CRA, then you give it to charity. Now I'll give you an example in the same case where a $500,000 was tax due at the time of death. What if an estate makes $1 million donation at the time of death? That $1 million donation will go to a charity. That tax receipts will wipe off this $500,000 tax due on death. And that $1 million will come from the insurance policy, which was acquired pennies on the dollar. Make sense? So your cost of donation is way, way lower. You got the money to pay the estate tax. In this case, you paid to the charity, not to the CRA. Beneficiary is happy because they got the entire estate without losing anything into taxes. Charity is happy because they got $1 million from this generous donor. Donor is happy because before his death, he knew that he's going to leave $1 million behind for the charity that he likes. Now, if you say one step further, that means you don't want to even pay for insurance. Then there are sophisticated leveraging strategies available. We call it IFA, which is immediate financing arrangements, where you acquired a life insurance policy and whatever the gap you have in the balance sheet, because you want to invest back in the business, correct? So what you're going to do, you're going to go to the bank and fill that gap with the leverage money. So your balance book is still same after acquiring the life insurance policy, because you borrow that money to back in the business and invest wherever you wanted to invest. So you're getting a tax efficiency there because you have a cost of borrowing and some portion of the insurance as a deduction against your business investment income. At the same time, in the chronological fashion, when the death happens, first the death benefit will pay the bank loan. Then it will come out from the corporation via CDA balance, go to the charity. Charity will write the tax receipt. That tax receipt will wipe off the tax that is due on death. So every strategy is different. Every person is different. Every business is different. As a financial advisor, our job is to find a balance or match with everything to each other.
Well, I love your explanation of the risk management and how insurances come into play and how they can benefit the business. I guess two questions I have on that, and this is just out of curiosity. One is, have you ever run into a situation where somebody has not done proper risk management beforehand, and now they're in a position where they've had, let's say, an unfortunate death or something has happened, and now they want you to fix the situation or give them solutions? Does that happen? And if yes, are there solutions for that at that point?
So I know a situation, yes, but did my client got a chance to improve that situation? No, because once the death happens, that opportunity is gone. So I'll give you a real example. A couple bought a life insurance policy, not from me. It was sold by some other advisor, and the policy it was correct policy. There was nothing wrong with the policy. But what happens a year later? Wife decides that okay, she doesn't need a life insurance policy, so she cancels the policy. It was simple term insurance policy. It wasn't a costly decision that she made a financial decision to cancel it. It was a very cheaper solution put into place to cover the mortgage. A year after that, she got diagnosed with breast cancer, and then 2 years later she dies. At the same time, COVID happened during the death. The husband was running a retail business, and because of COVID, he had to shut down that business. So there was no cash. Mortgage payments were due. The person died. Now there are small children needs to take care of it. So in this scenario, from a good scenario where they bought an insurance but canceled it, they end up in a very worse scenario. And unfortunately, nature was not with him as well. Death happened, COVID happened, business went down, and there was no money for it. So he had to sell this business for pennies. He acquired for $1 million. He had to sell it for $200,000. Because of COVID, he had to shut down the operations. And again, come back to that proper planning place. He did not have a cash flow management in place. It was everything combined. He had to sell the house, he had to sell the business, and he left Canada actually. Nobody can stop the death. If it's going to come, it's going to come. But the financial backup that person would have gotten could have helped him to survive, stay put while the COVID was doing its job. So life insurance could have paid for the debt or could have provided for the huge amount of cash, which they could have helped use that to survive the business and pay the mortgage payments. Right?
Yeah.
So, classical example.
Thanks for sharing that example. And that's part of why I asked you this question, is because I know a lot of business owners who don't plan for those things or who think it's not going to hit them. But like, it's one of those things, like, once it comes for you, it really comes for you. And then being proactive and having those measures in place not just protects your sanity, but it protects like this baby of yours that you have spent years creating and you've spent so much time in it, right? So that's why it's even so more important. So you've worked with all sizes of businesses. Let's say if it's a small business owner, what options do they have? Because a lot of times small business owner says, oh, I don't need these things because I'm just a small business owner. What do you have to say to them?
So every business needs a planning. And planning does not mean spending thousands and thousands of dollars. Planning could be spending $20 a month or $10 a month. Cost is very subjective. Mm-hmm. But as long as there's a need for planning and you start working towards it. So that means, let's say you are a startup business. Mm-hmm. Obviously, you need cash to run the business, survive the business, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't want to talk about growing your asset at this point because you don't have assets. You have a day-to-day need. It's like saving food for tomorrow. What about we are hungry today? We need to eat today, right?
Yeah.
Once you have enough food for today and you think there's a leftover, then you should start thinking about tomorrow and day after tomorrow and 20 months from now, 30 months from now. And now you're thinking about 10 years from now, 20 years from now. So you slowly upgrade your plan. You don't have to have a plan in place for everything today. Mm-hmm. But it's like taking a first step is important. So to all business owner that starts the business, start with some kind of planning. And as you grow in the business, your problems will change. And for those changing problems, the bigger solutions will be required. Mm-hmm. And the bigger solutions will have bigger finances in place. It's never about spending money. Yeah. As long as you understand how it works.
So let's say I'm a business owner and I need financial advice. Like, I don't know where to start. Is there a cost for me to sit down with you and discuss these things?
No. So I always say that, hey, I work pro bono. That means I don't charge for my consultation. First meeting is always on us. Second and third and fourth meeting, we see if there is a synergy where if there's a need for help, obviously we're going to help them to implement this risk plan or wealth plan. And if we end up setting up some life insurance policy or investment policy or investment account, then we get paid from insurance companies. So we don't charge that way. But I always tell my clients that you can pay me two ways. One, if there is a need for it, buying those products and services from us directly, and we get paid from insurance company. And second way, you can pay us by referring us to their friends or colleagues or family. So referral is the second way that we get paid. And I would love to get paid by that second mean of payment, which is referring or introducing to their business owners or friends or family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. So one more thing I just wanted to check on before we wrap up the breakdown of these financial services is tax planning and compliance with it. We are in the tax season right now. I find a lot of people don't understand taxes. Like, we all pay taxes, but we don't really understand taxes. And especially when it comes to the business world, right? Because there's so many opportunities. There's so many different clauses, sections, which you can leverage to get the best returns for your business. So my question to you is, can you explain how taxes work for businesses, and what are all different avenues that a business can leverage to then further their growth?
I'll answer this question different way. Mm-hmm. Tax is complicated for a reason. And if somebody's telling you, I know everything about tax, that's not 100% correct. Yeah. Because tax is always changing. And it's an interpretation-based system. That means if there is no precedent over it, if it's not written on the Tax Act, it may not be there. It may not be true. Mm-hmm. So you always hear that CRA came up with this kind of interpretation with this rule. That means whatever the meaning the accountants and corporate lawyers were putting to that rule, it's all of a sudden change because CRA came with a different interpretation. Now, tax planning is a very complex subject. What I tell my business owner clients is that it's at least 3 people should be involved when it comes to tax planning: a financial advisor, a corporate accountant, or an accountant, CPAs, mm-hmm. and the corporate lawyer. Because our job is to advise. We advise client. We bring in this two other specialists in when it comes to tax planning for any client: a corporate lawyer and an accountant. Because accountant always provides a number, corporate lawyer always provides a legal structure, and our job is to provide an advice. We act like a quarterback, where we work from the client side of. Basically, we represent the client. Our job is to educate the client, and then these people come into the transaction. So it's a collaborative work between at least 3 professionals. Another professional can come in, such as bankers. If my client is getting into some kind of leveraging strategy or getting a leverage, then an accountant might want to give some advice on the accounting side of it. That, okay, these are the deductions, this is where the money will come from. And I would advise on the financial part of it, which is basically talking about what that leverage is going to do for him, and why should he or why should he not doing it? Because I know the client more at a personal level. Mm-hmm. And the corporate lawyer might say, okay, we need this agreement in place or this structure in place so that you're protected if something goes wrong in that particular arrangement. Mm-hmm. So it's a 3-way, it's a collaborative work between professionals.
My understanding is, from what you've said, taxes. And my sister is actually a CPA, and she runs her firm. So I know what goes on in the tax scene, right, especially dealing with the businesses. So yeah, as you rightly said, right? Like, it's not just one person's job. You need people from the business. You need all these other people to get like the best advice. And it's just not like one solution fits all. It's just like you have to creatively see what fits their goals and objectives as you go on into the year. Let's shift gears. And with shifting gears, we're going to shift the language as well. Immigrants. You've worked with a lot of immigrants, business owners. Kya unique challenges in business owners?
Business owner, in the beginning, I just started a business. I have a huge loan that I need to pay off. Mm-hmm. I need to hire more employees. I need to buy more inventories. I need to sell more services and products. And in the beginning phase, the problem is all about sustain the business and grow the business. Mm-hmm. That means you are in a no money problem or less money problem. Mm-hmm. जब आगे जाके वो business when grow होता है, then the business owner still have problem. Mm-hmm. So it's now maybe more money problem. That means, I'm making more money than I need, business-wise and personally. How do I grow those money tax efficiently? Because remember, I was saying that there's a passive income tax, which is anywhere from 46% to 50% in Canada. It's a provincial tax, by the way. because it's up and down in the provinces. So now from the no money problem or less money problem to more money problem, now you want to protect those money from the taxes, from the litigators, all kinds of risk out there. When you have something, then you have a risk of losing. And when you have nothing, then you have a risk of having nothing. Basically, you need to survive, right? So again, business owners find those problems as they grow in the business. And the later part of the business, when it matures, now they have a succession issue. Then what do I do? मुझे ये बेचना है, yeah, I would like to transfer that to my next generation. And then need to look at the kids as well. Are my kids like my business? Do they want to even work in my business? Or are they financially sound people? That means making a financial decision wisely. Should I give them I would say, key to the door or not? So there's a succession issue. And there is a saying that says short sleeves to short sleeves by third generation. That means if you don't have a proper plan in place, no matter how much you leave behind, your third generation will be very poor because there was no plan in place. So planning doesn't mean just, putting up some insurance policies or financial planning in place. Planning means you have to educate, nurture your next generation, that how they're going to run the business, grow the business, and then pass it down to the next generation. It's like called stewardship. Their job is to whatever they got from their parents and grandparents and pass it either by keeping it same or by growing in value to the next generation. And the next generation should be taught the similar values to do the same with the further generation. So there's a lot more planning. Planning is never a financial planning. Planning could be educating them. Planning could be cultivating those habits that make them, I would say, more competent.
Yeah.
Right? In running the business.
So my follow-up on that is because what you do, we talked about the challenges that the business owners have and some gaps they have. Let's talk about the government. You work with business owners, everything that the government does. Is the government doing enough for the business owners? I guess that's part A. And then part B is, if they're not, then what can they do and why?
Right. In Canada, when a business makes $500,000 or less income, revenue, then they pay 11% tax. And when business starts making more than $500,000 in revenue, they pay 23% tax. We're talking about Alberta tax brackets. We call it small business deduction. That means government says, okay, you are a small business, you're making less than $500,000. We're going to give you a deduction. Hence, your tax bracket is not 23%, but it's 11%. It's a deduction that's given to you so that you can keep more money in the business and then business can grow. Government is doing their part. Government is helping by providing grants. There used to be a grant called CDEP, Canada Digital Adoption Program, right? Where business owners were getting grants to digitalize their business. There's another grant called SHRED, which is Scientific Research and Development Grants, which is up to, I think, $3 million, where if business is involved in some kind of scientific research or development activity, they could apply for this grant. They could get up to $3 million. And there's a lot of grants for employees, students. You want to hire some student employee, there is a grant for it. LMI program are also for business owners because there is no labor in the Canadian market. Now, don't get me wrong. There are business owners that utilize it wrongly too, right? So
100%.
Again, if I can give you a tool, it's up to you how you want to use it.
True.
So there is never enough. If I give you $10, you might say, give me $20. If I give you $20, you might say, why didn't you give me $50? It's all about what you want. End of the day as a business.
I think you definitely hit the nail on the head because there's are these programs and there are these grants and the government is doing, they're doing their stuff. Can they do more? As you said, always. there's always more that you can do. You can always give more money, more grants and whatnot. The LMIA, that's a different beast on its own. And everybody living in Canada, especially in our community, we know how they're being exploited. We'll leave it for some other day. In terms of your career, in terms of what you do, would you first recommend it to other people out there to get into this industry, learn about this industry?
Yes, definitely. This industry, as per my opinion, is the best industry that you can be in. By the way, I don't recruit anybody. We don't have a recruitment agency here, but I'm just giving you an honest advice. If you are the person that likes to get best in life, I think you should be in the insurance industry. Number one, you are doing best for yourself as well as for your client. The second thing is that you build relationship. You're going to meet people from all walks of life. Generally, in Canada or anywhere, people hang out in their own bubble. That means if you are a doctor, you might have 3, 4, 5 doctor friends, and then you hang out in the same bubble. When you are in a position like this, where people come to you, they open up, they talk about their businesses, their life, how they were successful or why they were not successful, you get to learn about their stories. So if you are a person that likes to learn from other people's stories, then this is also an industry you want to be. So you're doing great for yourself. You're doing great for your clients. You're learning along the way. And guess what? That learning that you get from different clients. So let's say client A, I can use those experiences or that knowledge and advise my client accordingly for client B. I can give you a real example. When I started working with dentistry, I didn't know a lot about dental business. That was 2018. Today, I work with hundreds of dentists in 6 provinces in Canada. And I work with from general dentist to a specialist, from associate to practice owner, from one practice owner, like one clinic owner, to multi-chain clinic owners. So I know the problems that a general dentist face and the problems that a specialist would face. And I can now have a database of knowledge where I can advise comprehensively to the client or new dentist who's coming in the business or who just got a license or was just starting a business, right? Because now I've seen those people that already did it, and I can advise this new client. So our advice is not necessarily insurance or insurance. It could be anything. But we know our professional liabilities as well. We know our licensing activities. So we always tell our clients that this is our expert advice, and this is just an advice or a comment. It's always a comment until you implement and it becomes an advice. Make sense?
Yeah, 100%. What does the process look like to become a financial advisor? What all is involved? What does the certification look like?
To get a life insurance license, it's very easy. You go to an institution that offers this LLQP course education. You get that education. You write an exam. If you pass, you are a licensed agent. That's just one step. Then it's up to you. You have to decide what else you want to do. Then you get further designations like CFP, CLU. If you want to go on the investment side, then there are CIM, CFA, which is another investment side designation. So once you get this license, there are lots of other avenues that opens up where you need to choose that are you going to be an insurance expert or you want to be an investment expert. If you want to be an insurance expert, then from LLQP, you get a CLU designation, and there's a PFA designation, or the one that I have, it's called Real Wealth Manager. If you want to be an investment side, then you get a CFP, Certified Financial Planner. By the way, Certified Financial Planner is like a comprehensive, it covers everything. But then you're going to go further advanced, then you get your IROC license, and you get your CFA, then you can get your CIM, which is portfolio management. There's a sky is the limit, and when it comes to furthering your career. But if you're not decided and you be a generalist, then there are chances that you may not be successful. You have to find your niche, focus on it, keep working. Just like money, your practice would compound. Because one relationship turn into 2, and 2 turn into 4, and 4 turn into 8, right? It's a compound growth. So very easy. All you have to do is learn how to handle the rejections.
Yeah, 100%. It's an art. It's not a lot of people can take that. You have to be resilient. You have to trust your abilities, and you have to trust what you are selling, right? Like I think I've spent a lot of time in sales, and I think it's very hard to sell something that you don't believe in. So you really have to believe in, because from your understanding of it, it's a customer-facing relationship based role that you are in. So if you screw somebody over once, they're going to remember that for the rest of your life. And in this business, you can't go around screwing people over, because then you're not going to have any business left.
It's a word of mouth business.
You help a lot of people in a lot of good ways. Is there a particular moment that you would categorize as like the peak of your professional career, or the highest moment that you are the most proud of? What comes to mind, and what does that remind you of?
So I'll give you an example where satisfaction was the highest. So I was introduced to a business owner client, and I was just told that, hey, this person needs a life insurance, go there and plan. That's it. I was told just that by an accountant, okay? When I went there, I started gathering all the information about the business, how they run it, what's the business structure, looked at their financial, and then realized that business is doing actually very well. It has It's growing at almost 50% year over year. That's a really great growth when it comes to any retail business. And the business was owned by three people, one father and two sons. And upon asking more questions, I realized that father will retire at one point, and that was like not so far from here or from today. So we wanted to. So again, I was called just to do the insurance planning, and that was like December of 2022. Okay, so I was introduced just to do the insurance planning, but upon asking those questions, I realized that this business needs more than an insurance planning. We needed to do the structural planning first. So again, I'm not a corporate lawyer, but I know how corporate structures work. One of the things that in a corporate market you need to know is all about corporations, how the Corporate Tax Act worked, how the corporate structures work, and how one can benefit from it. Anyway, so we wanted to structure this business. We wanted to have a planning in place where father wants to get out and bring the children in the business. So that means rolling over his shares to the corp and giving it to the children in a most tax efficient manner. Hence, the restructuring planning started, not by me, by a corporate lawyer and an accountant. At the end of the planning, client walk away. He didn't have to sell his business. He didn't have to die. He walked away with $1 million tax-free money today. He transferred his business to the next generation into the holding corporation because there was a rollover happen. And we call it Section 86, which is a straight freeze and then move the money. Client walks away with his $1 million lifetime capital gain exemption, and the children have now the future growth on them. And there's an insurance in place for the tax component of it. So let's assume the $6 million was the business, $2 million was the share of this father. We gave him $1 million right away. The $1 million that is due, which is going to be taken care of by the insurance planning. So insurance planning was done in 2024. The restructuring took us more than a year. Again, I take pride here because I could have just sold the policy and off to the next client. But that's not how we roll. I want to make sure that proper structure in place, client achieves other objectives that they want to achieve in their life. In this case, the client wanted to get out of the business, which is father, and children wanted to acquire the business. So we did it, but we did it in a most tax efficient manner. Now we have a planning in place that will also take care of the state tax that is due upon death of this father. So again, this is an aha moment, the latest one. There are lots of aha moments that happens when you start out, right? But then your aha moments changes because you get even a bigger experience. Then you get even a bigger experience, right?
Yeah. And that's really what your role is, right? Like it's clients don't know what they don't know, right? And you know everything else, but you don't know what the client knows about their business. So that's what you're trying to find out in that knowledge sharing. Let's go back in time. So you were born and raised in India. Can you walk me through from how was your upbringing growing up in India?
I was born and raised in Gujarat. There's a city called Surat.
Yeah.
It's actually a diamond city.
Yeah.
Growing up was a different story. My parents were not educated.
Yeah.
In the beginning, the lifestyle was very different because my father just moved from a village to a city. And just like when I came to Canada, and I had to find the surviving jobs, he had to find surviving job. So we were living in a one bedroom. That's it. No apartment, just one bedroom. It's everything. It's a kitchen. It's your bedroom. It's your living room. It's everything. Just one room, and then that's where you do everything. Right? There's a different portion for the sanitary part of it, but again, everything else is done in a one room. So grew up, lived there for 2 years, and I remember 3 years. My fourth year, my father was doing good financially. And then we moved to a different house. And then my father grew and he did well in the diamond business, and then a lifestyle change. So does our problem change, I would say, right? So I see the money part I'm coming from. It's not that I always had a money. I've seen the life that from the no money at all to a good amount of money, comfortable. I would say we were comfortable at one point. So again, so money is always a part of, it's always a discussion in the family, right? That's why I say that you have a no money problem. you're going to still have a problem. When you have a lot of money, then you're going to still have a problem. So I've seen that life where money plays a crucial part in your life.
Yeah, and I think
Right?
because of that, it gives you a whole different appreciation for money. So even when you're working with your clients, you understand it from both avenues. You understand when you don't have anything, and you understand when you do have things, and you want to be prepared for both the situations.
So yeah, one more thing I always tell my kids is that when I was growing up, I have a problem which is maybe one toy in the house, and you play with that toy until that toy dies.
Yeah.
That means there's nothing left.
Yeah.
So we had a problem where we had no toys.
Yeah.
And my kids here have a problem. They have too many toys.
Yeah.
We're throwing away toys every month,
Yeah.
which we don't need or which they're not playing with. That gives us a perspective. I always tell them, look, you always want to appreciate the money because our kids will have a different lifestyle than I did,
True.
for sure. They definitely have a different lifestyle. So, and again, it's generation gap too, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that, so I want to teach my children the value of the money. I'd like to teach them the business as well, because I think business is the way. I don't like the employment, nothing wrong with the employment. But I think if you want to build your life, then you need to learn how to sell and how to run businesses. If you do that, you're gonna do way better than most of the people in the world, not just in Canada.
Yeah. So, question on that. So, that's your advice to your kids. That's the things that you're teaching them. What would you tell your own self, a 20-year-old Yogesh, based on everything that you know about your life? What advice would you give yourself?
I would say, Yogesh, get a life insurance license right now, and do not do anything else but focus on this business. So I started this business about 7 years ago. So 2017, basically. Okay. And since starting, we have grown about at 50% growth rate. Every year, the growth rate was at 50%, right? So imagine if I would have started when I'm 36 now, and you're talking about 20 years, when I was 20-year-old, that's a 16 years of growth rate. That's crazy. I would tell myself, definitely do this. Don't do anything else. Not even get a nursing license. Start an insurance business and buy property in Vancouver and Toronto.
Yeah. Yeah, buying property in Vancouver and Toronto. I think that's like a lesson for everybody.
Just joking. It's fun. You always look back and you might think, why didn't I do it? I should have done this. I should have bought Bitcoin, for example. Or I should have bought this property 5 years ago. But in reality, when you're making a decision, you always make a decision on the present scenario. That means if you have money for it, money and means for it, by all means, go ahead and do it. But if you don't have money, then we won't be able to own those assets. Make sense? And then why regret? Because the decision that you made was the best decision at that time. I always tell my dentist client that, look, the one thing that you have that 99% of the people in Canada don't have is a liberty to invest or sprinkle your money in every asset class out there. Because as per Statistic Canada 2021 data, if you make $279,000 or more, you are a top 1 percentile taxpayer in Canada, right? And generally dentists do well. They do better than that number for sure, right? So my advice is always that keep sprinkling your money. You don't have to put all of your eggs in one basket. Keep diversifying. In the long run, you're going to do way better than most of the people in Canada. They don't have to go crazy. Make money, spend money, and whatever is left, invest it such a way or diversify. You're going to do very well down the road. Meanwhile, protect it through insurances, which is from the unpredictable scenarios: life, disability, and illness. Cover this through insurance product. You have a emergency fund in place. You have proper agreements in place. You have proper will in place. All you have to do is keep your license and keep growing. And whatever is left over, keep investing slowly by slowly based on your risk. And you're going to do very well no matter what the market situation is.
That's an awesome advice, Yogesh. So thanks for that. Just into your personal life, how do you manage your days effectively? What does your day look like? What are some things that you do outside of your business to stay active and fresh?
So generally the life is very busy because imagine you have a kids that are 5 and 7 and you have a business that takes time, that requires your time. And I love the fact that this business needs my time. That means business is doing great.
Yeah.
A typical day, wake up, get ready, get kids ready for the school, drop them off to the bus stand or to the school if bus doesn't show up sometime. That happens in Alberta for sure. And then start your day. You should be doing exercise. I'm not going to say here that I do exercise every day. I think about doing an exercise every day, but you should be doing a little bit of exercise every day. And then start your day, come to office, work for about 7-8 hours. I have a flexibility of working so many hours.
Okay.
Whatever I want to do, I can just work for a few hours and leave.
Yeah.
But I love this job. I love this work so much that I sometimes get bored over the weekends. What do I do now? And then do some reading. Reading is the most important part of our life. I like to read books that are motivational, self-help books. I like to books that are in our industry. Also studying for designations.
Okay.
So I'm working for CFP right now. During the weekend, I also do one thing that I love it, which is playing volleyball.
Oh,
so
nice.
we play volleyball weekly. We have a group of friends. Those friends are my clients too, and those clients are my friends. It's interchangeable. Either they were friends first and become client, and client becomes friends.
So you mentioned reading. I love to read quite a bit. What books would you recommend for myself and for our listeners, and why?
So if you are in sales, then you should read, or you must read, a classic from Dale Carnegie, which is How to Influence Friends and Influence People.
Yeah.
So that's the one classic, I think, that has helped me to have a growth mindset. It's all about what do you think. And once you have a proper mindset, you're going to do better. And obviously, you have to work hard as well, okay? Mindset is not important, but you have to work on it. So that's that. If you want to get a general idea about world, then I would ask you to read books from an historian who's still alive. His name is Yuval Noah Harari. Sorry.
Yeah. I love him.
And he wrote 3 masterpieces, right?
Yeah.
You know about him?
Sapiens. That's the one I'm reading right now.
Yeah. So Sapiens is a great book. Yeah. The second book he wrote is Homo Deus. And the third book he read is 21 Lessons for 21st Century. And if you read that book in a chronological fashion, you're going to see a lot of relevant thing happen already.
Yeah.
So historian's job is to look at what happened in the past, what's happening now, and project in future, that what could happen based on what we have done over the years. So if you read that book, I think it will give you an overall sense about world. I really love it. He talk about this AI, he talks about this Homo Deus. In the book Homo Deus, he talks about man becoming like a god. That means, so he has a story behind it. He says, look, in 1920s, 1930s, the life expectancy was around 20 years or 30 years. There's a lot of things. The famine was happening, lots of pandemics were happening, wars were happening, and people's life expectancy was like very less. Now we're living around 86 years on an average. So our life expectancy has quadrupled in less than 100 years, okay? Now we can, I would say, he's saying that now we can synthesize or edit our genes. We can create organs in the lab. We have artificial meat, right? And soon you will be able to create humans entirely through technology and AI, right? It's happening now. If you can generate a kidney, an ear, a nose piece, right? So why not entire human body? So he's saying that now the man is doing activities like a god. We used to say that God can do this and that, right? Miraculous thing. And then the combination of Homo sapiens and Homo Deus is like, now what do we do about in 21st century? Because AI is taking over. There is a huge number of people that's not going to contribute anything in the community, right? And that will create a gap between a class that is so-called useless class because it's not contributing at all, and a class that has a huge influence over everything else.
True.
Makes sense?
Yeah.
So from a lot of have to a lot of not have at all.
Yeah.
So again, that book is really eye-opening. And that also helps you with your clients, basically, because now you have some ideas where the world is going, what could happen. Now, again, I'm not predicting anything, but you can keep that in mind and give a holistic advice when you're talking to your clients, right? So I think that book will really help you. Then about money books, right? The Intelligent Investors and Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. There's a lot of books written on money. So I read self-help, money books, I read a little bit books from historians as well. Like I'm talking about those 3 books,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah.
and I'm an audible guy, so I listen to books all the time, and I'm commuting from to and from work.
Uh-huh. Yeah, that's lovely. Thanks for sharing that. I love all those recommendations. I have come across a few of them already. Yeah, going back to The Sapiens, it is an incredible book. Like when I was reading that book, and I'm still left with a little bit of it, I've covered like 60-70% of it. It is such an eye opener, and I just want to keep reading it. And as I'm reading it, I want to tell people to read it because it just gives such a different perspective on life, and you get to see it really from where you come to where you are and where you're going. Yeah, I definitely recommend that book to
So
everybody.
wait till you finish that and start the Homo Deus,
Yeah,
and you'll see that those dots connecting.
yeah.
And when you go to the transition to the third book,
Hmm.
now you're going to realize, okay, what should be done, and how the political parties will look like, how this poor class, poor people will look like, universal basic income. He talks about pandemics. He talks about everything.
I'll be sure to check those books out. I look forward to it. And now, with your little bit of explanation, I'm probably going to go buy them today. Yogesh, what would you put on a billboard for the entire country of Canada to see, and why?
Ooh, that's a tricky question. You're asking as a general advice or a business advice?
As a general advice, could be multiple messages. It's just a message that you want the people, like it's your message that you're passing on to the world. Could be a quote that you live by.
Our company motto is rendering peace of mind.
Yeah, we can go by
That
that.
means that's a good one, because our job is to end of the day bring peace. That's it. If you have concerns about your financials, if you have concern about your family, if you have concern about taxes, we can do that. We can help you. And our end goal is to render peace of mind. We can make so much amount of the money, but if you don't have peace, then technically those monies are useless.
Yeah.
Make sense? The end goal of the money is to give you some kind of peace. And money is not everything, but money is everything. You know what I'm saying is, people with no money will always tell you that money is not everything. And people with money will tell you, yeah, that's true, but I still would take that option, which is having a lot more money than having no money.
Yeah.
So
It's a cliche
I
statement
think
that they say, I'd rather be crying in a BMW than crying on not a BMW. Right? Like it's like that kind of comparison. So just on that, Yogesh, because this conversation is catered towards immigrants, towards South Asian immigrants. You've been an immigrant yourself. You've lived through that life. You talk to so many of them, the challenges. If you have to pass on a piece of advice to your fellow immigrants, what is that going to be and why?
I would say try to help anybody and everybody that you can without any expectations, and you will do better than everybody else, regardless. So, no expectation. If you help others, those same people will help you. End of the day, human help human. Okay? And if we all work together and try to, I would say, help each other, then end of the day, everybody's going to grow. I believe in karma. That means I will try to help no matter what.
So it's just a cycle of goodness, right? If you keep that mindset and you keep paying it forward, it's going to come back to you around, right? Like it's that cycle. And if you do it without expectations, it's going to come back to you. It's just a matter of time. You might not see it in the moment, but eventually it's going to come to you. Yogesh, what does the future look like for you? What can we expect from you over the next 2 years, 5 years? Any plans?
Our plan is to grow and work with, I would say, quality clients, and just keep doing what we are doing right now. I think in the future, you're going to see more, I would say, integrated services from us. We are constantly looking for ideas that can improve our client's life. So you will continue to see more and more from us. Now, what that more and more look like today, I don't know, because I'm constantly looking at it. And if you look for it, you're going to find it.
Where there's a will, there's a way, as they say. So, Yogesh, it's been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you for all the information and the insights you have shared about the financial industry and about your career, your life story. I'm pretty confident that anybody who will be listening to this conversation will be able to pick up some tidbits and make changes in their lives and live a better life.
Thanks for having me. It was great. Thank you.